Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Thursday, August 14th. And what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about options and why presenting a set of options is better to your customer and to your own self in real life, right? But you got to be careful with it. So stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, if you didn't already know. And yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Thursday, the 14th of August of 2025. So what do I mean by options? I mean, what I found that has worked really well for us at the shop is to be able to give the customer a number of options. And that gives them the ability to make the choice based on the best information you have, right? But I've also seen cases where we as shop owners give too many options and then it confuses the customer. And that happens in real life too, right? You try to figure out what your options are. And if you start coming up with so many different options, then you don't know what to choose. So what you end up doing is nothing. So you need to have it so you're narrowed down to two or three options at the most for your customer. Usually we can either junk it, we could do an engine rebuild, we can do an engine swap if it's serious like that. You know, or if it's a spindle that the bearings are bad in it, we can just do the bearings instead of the whole spindle. The better the option is for the customer. And when it comes to options, you need to have prices in mind too. You don't want to give the customer options and not have done the homework to find out about what the cost is going to be per option, right? But that boils over into our own lives, when we're dealing with stuff on a daily basis. The the better define the options, the more homework that went into it, and costs of doing X, Y, or Z are paramount to having a good outcome. Most of my customers, the new ones, are always worried about cost, and I don't blame them. Money is tight, and that's so everybody is trying to save as much as they can. They need their lawnmower, but they also need the the extra money for their own family bills and stuff like that. And I get that. So I try to put my customer at ease right off the bat by explaining to them that I will treat your lawnmower just like as if it was my own. I will not put a penny more into yours than I would my own. And before anything major takes place, you will get a phone call. And that has worked well for us over the years. We don't just go ahead and fix something and then expect the customer to be happy and pay the bill. That rarely is the case. And we had a friend yesterday that showed up. He needed a part for his back blade welded, so we're going to take care of that this week. But he had a Bobcat mini excavator, and last year he had some problems with the running and this and that. So Claude and I went up. We identified that it was the electronic fuel shutoff. Bought a new one, replaced it, perfect running until a month ago. And he was fearful it might be the same thing again. So we went up and we tested the solenoid, everything else, and everything was fine on that end. It was just deeper than what Claude felt comfortable doing. So a friend of mine works for a Bobcat dealership and was a service manager, and I asked him, because I knew he was working on stuff at home too, if they could take a look at it or if he could take a look at it. And he said, sure, shoot me his number. Well, what they ended up doing was they ended up coming and getting it and taking it back to their shop and decided that it needed a new computer brain, a new CDI. So they replaced that. But while it was there, they said that they couldn't only run it just a few minutes and it started getting hot. That was never an issue. This guy is immaculate when he takes care of stuff. Anybody else I would have had questions about, but him, no. He takes care of his stuff. Could something have happened? Yes. But they get it back there, and then they call him and they tell him they got the running issue solved, but now they've got an issue with it overheating. It never had any problem overheating before, but now all of a sudden it does. And they think that there's some antifreeze coming out the exhaust. That would tell me a head gasket, right? Or a crack block. So the first thing with the computer stuff, that ended up setting him back almost $1,700. And then this time they wanted to go ahead and take the head off, send it to a company that shaves the heads, put a new head gasket in it, and they weren't sure if that was going to solve it or not, but the cost would be around $5,000. $5,000, and they already got him for $17,000. So there's $6,700, and this thing is mint, low hours. That's what I mean. It left a bad taste in his mouth, and it left a bad taste in my mouth. Because my philosophy in my shop is you work from the cheapest back. You don't just jump to, let's do an engine swap because the engine is giving you some kind of an issue. No, you do the proper diagnostic on that engine and rule out stuff. And we had already done that for the Bobcat dealership. We had ruled out that it wasn't the fuel solenoid, wasn't any inline fuses, but there was a possibility that the mice might have gotten into it, and because it's common up here, and chewed one of the wires, which was more feasible than anything. But we didn't have the software program to plug it in to tell me where that issue might be or where to look. They did. And instead of doing much, they just went ahead and replaced the whole CDI box. And any of you that know Bobcats, it's not that hard to get at. And the labor on it was crazy. I'm like, it's right there. All you got to do is just pop it out and put a new one in, if that's what they did. That is going to leave a bad taste in the customer's mouth. That customer is not going to run back to them. Okay? And he is one of our customers too. And he's like, what do I do, Eric? And I said, well, let me get some of this stuff off my plate, because he's a hobby farmer too. So I need to get some hay moved. I need to get some other stuff done. I will come up and see what you have going on. And I will diagnose what the issue is, even if I have to download the software and put it on my laptop. He was never given numerous options. He was just given a black or white. It's either this or nothing. There was no in between. And that shop charges $140 an hour. And they got him for trucking. And they wanted to fix the engine while it was right there. Because they said in order to do the head gasket on it, they have to pull the whole engine out of the unit to do the head gasket and then put it back in. Yes, granted, it's easier to take the whole thing out and set it to do the head gasket, but it's not necessary. You know. But that's one case where he wasn't given any options. And you need to have options. If you're doing it right, you're trying to look at what is the cheapest way out. Not what is the quick fix, toggle up crap That's not what I'm talking about. And a lot of mechanics do that. They toggle it up. That's fine if you're a mechanic, because then you know how to do all these 5 things before you even hit the key switch. Me, I want it so that it runs and drives the way it's supposed to, so that the customer just turns the key and it starts, right? But you still need to start from the basics and work your way back. And with this Bobcat, it was simply, it would start and quit. It was like a sensor or something was triggering, saying to shut it down. And he's got it home now, and he said that he can't even start it and go around the building, and it starts beeping and shuts itself down. Because I told him, I said, my mini excavator, if it starts getting hot, because they said, did you get it hot overheat? Did you overheat it and warp the head maybe? With my mini excavator, if it starts getting hot, it's going to start beeping like crazy, and it shuts itself off before it gets too hot. It will just shut off. That is to protect the engine. That's a fail-safe in place, so that it won't get to the point of where the head gets so hot that it would warp. And then again, I question, wait a minute, how you guys work on these every day? How is it that he can overheat that engine when all the system is still working properly the way it's supposed to? It's shutting down. What did you do to it to cause it to start to have heating issues? They may have done something when they were in there doing the other that has now caused another issue. You see what I'm saying? And if you get into that situation where you fix one thing and then another thing takes place after you fix that, you may want to go back and take a look at what did you fix and how did you fix it and what did you do and remove and what have you. Did you get it all back together the way it's supposed to be? As simple as that. We had another customer that we did a road call on last week, and he had asked us if we could, because the hydrostatic, it's a case IH, but the hydrostatic was starting to get weak on it, and there like shave plates in it. And Claude didn't feel comfortable because we hardly ever work on the hydrostatic transmissions on the compact tractors. It's a 60 horse, I think. So he sent it to the shop, and they did the work on it. And he got it home, and he noticed that there was some fuel leaking on top of the engine. So he called him up and asked him, what would you charge me to fix the fuel leaks that I'm having on top of the engine? And why didn't you guys see that while I was here? And they said, yes, we can fix it for you, but it's going to cost you $800. $800. It's a 3-cylinder diesel. And the lines that he's talking about are return lines. They're not pressure. They're simply take the excess fuel back through the system and back into the tank. Easy peasy. So he called us, and because we do a lot of work on his stuff, he said, Eric, is this something that you guys can tackle? I said, yeah. He said, well, when can you do it? I said, we'll be up in the morning. So we went up the following morning. He was busy doing some other things, so he wasn't there, which is, for me, better, because the customer tends to distract you. Plus, if they stand right there and hover over you, they expect if it only takes you half an hour, they shouldn't get billed for an hour's labor, which they do. They get a service call plus an hour. But we got there, popped the plate on top of the hood to get access to the engine, top of the engine. There were 3 hoses that were all weather checked. Why they didn't replace them while they were right there is beyond me. I brought a bunch of fuel line hoses, different sizes, Claude got out the one. He said all three of them are the same size. So I cut 3 pieces of fuel line, put the clamps back on them, put them back into place, tightened everything all up, buttoned everything all up. Just as we were putting the cover back, the owner pulled back in. And he said, "Is there anything you guys can fix?" I said, "It's all done." He said, "What do you mean it's all done?" I said, "Yeah, it's all done." He said, "Well, they told me that it'd take at least half a day to do that." I said, "Well, maybe they're slower than us." But he wanted to know what was going to be the cost, because he wanted me to come take a look and give him a price. But once we looked, we realized it's not that big of a deal. So we replaced the fuel lines and everything else. And he said, "Well, what do I owe you?" And I said, "You owe me for a service call. That's $60. And an hour's labor. And that's $55. And everything is replaced on the return side." He had been quoted $800 plus trucking to get it to that dealership to replace those 3 fuel lines. I mean, it'd be one thing if it was on the pressure side, but it's on the return side, so it doesn't have to be steel lines. It's regular fuel line like we use on our lawnmowers. So I'm going to start wrapping this up. The biggest thing when it comes to anything in life, especially if you're a business person, is coming up with options. Look at your options, weigh out your options. I do a lot of gut feeling calls because I've been doing this so long. If something doesn't feel right, usually it's a good idea to back away from it. But you want to have enough options so that your customer can make an informed decision, and you got to have prices with those options. But you can't overload the customer with too many options. So you need to narrow it down to 2 or 3 options of this is what we can do. And how do you want to proceed? And when it comes to your own personal life, that's the same thing. Is if you're coming up against a headwind, and the headwind is just simply the wind blowing against you and pushing you back, sit down and see if you can't come up with 2 or 3 different options that are available to you and what you can do. And the more options, I'll be honest with you, the better I feel, because it means it's not a hit or miss. It's I can do X, Y, or Z. And I weigh each one of them out. I weigh out what the costs are going to be. And the cost is in your health as well as money. Cost isn't always money. Cost could be stress, mental health, your physical health, and on, and the effect that it would have on your family. So on that note, put in the comments what you guys do. Do you guys present options, or do you just go ahead and fix? And then it is what it is. So on that note, you guys have a great Thursday, and we'll catch you here bright and early tomorrow morning for the last day of the weekday. Thanks so much for watching.